the donors, you would think, Republicans polling shows they're going to take back the House. It's possible they're going to take back the Senate. You would think the corrupt people that own our government and the president would be flooding them with cash right now, trying to keep the Democrats in power, trying to keep the House in Democratic control, trying to keep the Senate in Democratic control. But in addition to his extremely poor polling numbers, it looks like even the DNC can't get donors to show up for this administration. Let's start here. Biden-Harris donor blues. Biden-Harris donor blues. Vice President Kamala Harris was slated to host the DNC's major money hauling event, the annual Women's Leadership Forum, on May 25th and 26th. A natural fit, given that she's the highest office holding woman in American history. And when the invites were sent out on May 5th, it was hyped as an incredible opportunity to mingle in person after 2 years of virtual events and meetings. But the event was rescheduled at the last minute for autumn, when the event is traditionally held, after the DNC couldn't sell enough tickets. Tickets for the event start at $250 per head for general admission, and the much coveted photo line slots start at $15,000 and top off at $50,000. Imagine that. People can't afford gas, food, rent, pretty much anything. But apparently $15,000 or $50,000, it ranges, to take a picture with the vice president there. The higher tier tickets in particular weren't moving quickly enough, and the organizers needed more time to build interest. Emphasizing that the event is typically held in the fall, even though invites were sent out for May 25th, the DNC spokesperson countered, the vice president is a huge draw. Just in April, she held a fundraising event for us that brought in over $1 million, but Wessel did not give a reason for this rescheduling. While the DNC continues to rake in small dollar dollars with digital ads, I've heard that there's been frustration within the DNC about the amount of access the White House is willing to give to the principals, Biden and Harris. The Obama administration, after all, okayed multiple events per month, which allowed them to charge as little as $5,000 for some grip and grin photos. Oh, boy. The official line from the White House has been to blame COVID and scheduling as the culprits, of course, but their inactivity with donors has made the fundraising more difficult. And it's a harder sell for the DNC to charge $15,000 for a picture with Harris. Quote, the honest reality is the White House hid behind COVID for a year, and they were perfectly legitimate in being cautious. It's a new world. Using that excuse is not that great. The White House needs to start giving the DNC more dates, and they're not. This is the latest microdrama in a fractious relationship between the Biden administration and its elite donor base, whose members have gotten increasingly vexed about no longer being able to enjoy the familiar perks of their generosity. Some have told me that the donor maintenance has dropped to the point where they genuinely wonder whether Biden is pondering re-election in 2 years. All right, you get the point. What's amazing about this, Colin, you probably don't have it. That's okay. But yesterday we played you a clip. Biden doing his usual, I'm lunch bucket Joe shtick, saying, damn it, Wall Street didn't build the middle class. Damn it, the middle class built, Wall Street didn't build the middle class. The workers built the middle class. Yet the DNC, for a picture with Biden and Harris, be ready to pony up between $15,000 and $50,000. So kind of mixed messaging when you're giving your little lunch bucket. I'm a union man guy, which he's not. He has sold out unions most of his career. Frankly, the AFL-CIO, who just held a rally with Biden yesterday, are a bunch of suckers, in my opinion, if they actually believe this man is for unions. He has taken money from union busters. He has pushed every trade deal that has decimated unions. But I digress. So what's interesting here, they make excuses. Oh, well, COVID, this and that. I mean, she's the vice president of the United States, right? These donors are not just donating for, photos. They're donating because they get special deals with the administration. They get subsidies. They get special tax breaks. They get special contracts from the administration. That's why donors donate to the Democrats and the Republicans, and donate to try and stop people like Bernie or progressive candidates. But what's interesting, when they're not when you can't get enough people to RSVP for Harris, is that really because Harris isn't a draw? Is it because the donors are just not buying what you're selling at this point. And they see, we don't want to, you know, they're money men and women. We don't want to lose our money because it's pretty much declared at this point. The Republicans are going to take back the House. My guess, maybe plus 30 to 40 seats. It's likely that Republicans could take back the Senate as well. So they're saying, well, Biden's lifeless. His polls are worse than Trump's was at this point. You got $5.10 is right now the average for gas. In fairness, it's not all his fault, but he certainly could be doing a lot more, which we'll get to in a little bit. And even the donors aren't even corrupt enough. Well, they are corrupt enough, but aren't even stupid enough to pour money into the Titanic. I mean, can you imagine if Republican fundraisers wouldn't show up to a fundraiser from Dick Cheney or Pence? The media would be all over it. But nothing from the media that essentially Kamala Harris, the vice president, can barely fill, you know, whatever DNC yacht they're having this fundraiser on. Pretty bad, if you got my Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm impersonation. But it's not just that they're not drawing at fundraisers and they had to last minute reschedule. Because by the way, even though those donors at the high level weren't RSVPing, that's not just an insult to Harris. They are sending a message to Biden, because Biden and his donor maintenance program, which all these vulture Democrats and Republicans have people that only deal with donors, they know who's RSVPing and who's not. The donors are sending a message to Joe. Hey, Joe, we own you and we're not happy with your performance. That's the message they're sending. But in fairness to Joe, the donors won't actually let him do anything because they won't let politicians really do anything. That's what I'm always saying. We could focus on elections, but Biden's not really making the decisions. And Harris isn't necessarily making the decisions. Even Trump, to a certain degree, wasn't making the decisions. The donors set the line for what they can and cannot do. That's why Biden will not do anything, will not fight against Manchin and Sinema to end the filibuster, will not fight for a $15 minimum wage or any of this shit, because his donors don't want it. Same thing with Obama. That's why when Obama had nearly a supermajority in the Senate and in Congress, he basically gave us a Republican health care plan because the donors wouldn't allow anything more, and the donors spoke through Joe Lieberman and whatever other fuckers blocked a more progressive health care plan. But I want to move on because it's not in all cases that the donors aren't showing up, but it's interesting which donors Biden is now leaning on. So this is also about the fundraising network column, the other link, Dish on new Kamala fundraiser. For the first 18 months of their administration, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have mostly left big donors in the Bay Area out to dry. That's partly due to the lingering Zoomification of life in late COVID, and partly due to the administration having more important things to do than tending to big donors' egos, among other things. I don't really think they have much more important things to do than tending to big donor egos. But sure, a few select loyal donors have snuck through the Byzantine maze that is the Ambassador Olympics, meaning have become ambassadors. But the high dollar blues is impossible to ignore. That was a constant theme I heard from sources while running through Washington over the last few weeks. Democratic donors and bundlers, fairly or unfairly, feel ignored. Oh, poor donors, they feel ignored by their servants, Joe Biden. A case in point, neither Biden nor Harris have visited the Bay Area to glad hand with the party's biggest contributors. Well, no longer. Harris is making the administration's first fundraising trip to the Bay Area later this month, according to an invitation passed my way. The vice president, a former San Francisco district attorney and the state's twice elected attorney general, is headlining an event hosted by philanthropist Shannon Hunt Scott and Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott on June 30th. The event is also helmed by Electing Women Bay Area, the Ascendant fundraising group that also hosted Harris during her first fundraiser via Zoom after being announced as vice president. We showed up, and then we need you to show up in a big way now, reads an invitation sent on Monday. Kamala is the first woman of color to hold the office of vice president. This continues to be a BFD, as the president would say. A big fucking deal. Identity politics, my friends. She will be on the ticket in 2024 I'm not sure about that. We want to help her demonstrate her own fundraising prowess as a leader of the party. Tickets for the event run from 1,000 to 50,000, which gets you a photo with the Veep. There are also plans for a high-dollar event to be held during the trip out to San Francisco. Now, here it gets better. Biden, meanwhile, has also picked up the pace of his engagement with donors, flying to 2 events last week hosted by Hollywood mogul Chaim Saban and others that brought in $5 million for the DNC. But Biden and his team, somewhat sensitive to the crass age-old politics of rewarding wealthy supporters, have done less of the typical suck-up than veterans of the presidential fundraising circuit expect. Bundlers consider Kamala in particular to be a weak draw. More broadly, Democrats involved in big money politics feel a sense of pessimism and even looming dread. As several fundraisers reminded me this week, it can be hard to raise money when you fear a loss is coming. So, Chaim Saban. Chaim Saban. Who is Chaim Saban? Chaim Saban is one of the wealthiest men in America. He is uber Zionist pro-Israel. He is one of the biggest donors to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton over the years, to the point where some articles read beyond just the normal donor relationship. They've vacationed with each other. They've broke bread with each other, all that good stuff. Colin, if you have the tweet, this was in 2019. Chaim Saban likes 22 of the 23 Democratic candidates for president. But I profoundly dislike Bernie Sanders, and you could write it. I don't give a hoot. He's a communist under the cover of being a socialist. 22 are great. 1 is a disaster zone. So that's who Biden just did a fundraiser with. But it gets better. It's not just Bernie derangement syndrome for Chaim Saban. Chaim Saban also attacks senators for urging humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. The hardline pro-Israel billionaire accused a group of 13 senators led by Bernie Sanders of getting their facts wrong. Television mogul and Democratic Party megadonor Chaim Saban is privately reprimanding lawmakers who spoke out about the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. Saban emailed the senators, some at their personal address, to directly express his displeasure with a letter organized last month by Bernie Sanders. 12 Democrats and Sanders signed the May 11, 2018 letter calling for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to act urgently in order to help relieve the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The letter, which came amid a deadly Israeli response to a protest movement in the Gaza Strip, said that the Trump administration should restore funding to a United Nations humanitarian effort and encourage Israel to ease restrictions on Palestinians living in Gaza. 3 days after the senators sent the letter, Israel fired on another round of protesters, leaving dozens dead and 100 more wounded. On Tuesday, The Intercept obtained a copy of an email Saban sent to 6 of the senators, along with a handful of staffers. Senators, for you to listen to Senator Sanders and accuse Israel of being the main culprit is outrageous, misinformed, offensive, and shows a lack of understanding of the region's basic fundamentals. Do your homework, unless you have chosen to blindly follow Senator Sanders' ill-advised, misinformed, simplistic, and ignorant lead. So, if you dare, yes, he did. He is behind the Power Rangers. I should have mentioned that. He is behind the famous Power Rangers, whatever that was, television show. But basically what Chaim Saban was, if you dare speak out against essentially bombing the most dense place on earth, which is the Gaza Strip, and basically killing people in an open air prison, if you dare speak out on that, you are the depraved one, essentially. So that's who Biden just kind of glad-handed with for money. But there's another thing with Chaim Saban. This is my favorite. Look at this image from this article. He is BFF with the Clintons, creating a corporate, corrupt Power Ranger trifecta. You got to give it to Mother Jones. I don't like their reporting. They're not really progressive, but boy, is that a sight of Chaim Saban and the Clintons. I'll read a little bit of this just so you know who Biden was just, hobnobbing with. On August 22nd, a convoy of blacked-out Suburbans, flanked by police escorts, sped west along Sunset Boulevard and then headed north into the Hollywood Hills. The motorcade finally pulled up to the gated entrance of Beverly Park, an exclusive enclave that is home to an array of famous actors, rockers, and other Los Angeles A-listers. Hillary Clinton's destination that evening was the palatial compound of Univision chairman Chaim Saban, a billionaire most famous for creating the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Saban's sprawling mansion was built in the style of a French country manor, and the meticulously tended grounds in which he took special pride were modeled on the gardens of Versailles. In the past 20 years, he and his wife have donated $2.4 million to the Clintons, various campaigns, and at least $15 million to the Clinton Foundation, where Cheryl Saban serves as a board member. Chaim prides himself on his top giver status. "If I'm not number one, I'm going to cut my balls off," he once remarked on the eve of a Hillary fundraiser. So I bring this up not to, gang up on Hillary and Bill, which I enjoy doing, but just to point out in one breath, donors won't even show up for the vice president of the United States. They got to reschedule a fundraiser because she's not a draw. In another breath, you got Biden going to, give photo ops and fluffy speeches in front of unions and, workers built the middle class, not Wall Street. And then what does he do? He goes and meets with filthy billionaires. And I bet you Wall Street donors were also at this fundraiser with Chaim Saban, begging for money and basically bending the knee to Hillary and Bill's sugar daddy, Chaim Saban. So between, Kamala Harris not being a draw, Biden having to schlep to LA to hobnob with, the corrupt Power Ranger guru, it ain't pretty. Ain't pretty. Not pretty if for the Democrats. Now, let's be clear. The Republicans are doing similar cringe fundraisers because we live in the United Corporations of America. It's all theater. They're not representing you. They're bought off by these donors to do the donors' bidding. The CEOs, big oil, big pharma, real estate, Silicon Valley, military industrial complex, Wall Street, et cetera, et cetera. But I got news for you. The polling is one thing. If you can't get enough donors to show up for you, if you're the vice president, if the sitting president, Biden, has to go kiss the ring of Clinton donors, boy, bad, dark days at DNC headquarters, if you ask me. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.